Each Sunday night, I'd watch the practice with none of my friends. I'd turn the dial to ABC to see the creep of the week that Bobby Donald defends. But I'm out of practice.
With your hosts, Keith Martin.
Out of practice.
Mike and Deglio fam.
Way back in high school, most every night, my mom watched QVC, so I missed the practice. There was no TiVo, what could I do? Wait 15 years, get fat, then stream it on Hulu. Out of practice.
It's the season finale, and we're recording during a hurricane. Not Philly.
Practice.
Yeah, nothing here but the hurricane of emotions I felt this week.
Out of practice.
And welcome to the Out of Practice podcast, a weekly podcast in which me and my old buddy Mike talk mostly about ourselves, but then eventually get to David E. Kelley's award-winning series, The Practice. This week is a very important episode. It's the season finale, a very spectacularly important episode of The Practice. It is season 6, episode 22, The Verdict. And so I'm in a hurricane. I don't know about you down in Philly, but I mean,
It's not raining even.
No, it's raining.
But
here.
I am supposed to come to New York tomorrow, so I wonder if it's going to be like, if I'm going to have to swim there. What's this? I heard storm surge could be pretty epic.
Yeah, the storm surge, it really, like, what I'm disappointed in, we don't have practically any wind here. I mean, obviously, it turned east and is basically heading straight up New England. We thought it was going to touch us, but we're just sort of getting the outer bands here of Hurricane Henri. But yeah, no, we're just basically just getting a lot of rain. So a little anticlimactic, but now as a homeowner, it's less exciting and more like, damn, I hope the gutters work. So it's like adulthood reaching me at 40. It's like, oh, the snow days like becomes a pain in the butt as opposed to super fun.
Yeah, we had some adulting this week as well. So
yes, you did.
Longtime viewers might recall that we were headed to vacation last week. This week, the beginning of this week, which I was very excited about. Very much needed a vacation. So we have some land in the Adirondacks, as I think I've mentioned previously. And we were headed up there, although the cabin we have on our land is in a little bit of disrepair, so we're working on fixing that up for future vacations. But now that I finally have a little bit of money in my universe, that aside, so my brother-in-law's family, as well as my family, as well as another family I don't know, we're all going up, plus 2 other couples. And so my brother-in-law rented this huge, sprawling lake house, which was right out of a log cabin magazine. This thing was epic and beautiful. Overlooking the lake, on the lake, with a dock out to the lake, just like spectacular. And we couldn't split it with him, so we sent him some money just to kind of like, to say thank you and to get
the
our
tip of the cap,
reserve our space. But I mean, that's not to say it wasn't a lot of money. So we head up. We're so excited. We had a great drive up. We get there on Monday. We get there on Monday and have one of the best days I've had in a long time. Outside all day, playing in the lake, drinking, grilling out, hanging out, meeting new people, seeing my nephews, just like absolutely spectacular time. Magic. So awesome. Now, the week prior, Jen works at a restaurant, and they have, everybody's a no mask policy these days. And so, and we are both fully vaccinated. I should say that Jen and I are both fully vaccinated people. We woke up one day, both of us had a pretty stark headache we woke up with. And it's been rainy and such and hot, and we just had run 6 miles the day prior, so dehydration, all these things play in.
Sure.
But
sure.
just as an abundance of caution, because we were going up to see, hang out with kids,
Yeah.
Jen got a CVS quick test, right?
Yeah.
PCR test, I should say. That's important to this story. So this story is a great story, by the way. Pseudoscience is involved, real science, adulting, all kinds of things. So regardless, we had that great day. We wake up Tuesday morning. I wake up Tuesday morning to Jen going, Mike. She got her CVS test back, and she was positive. She had a breakthrough test. Now, this is a PCR test, so this is not a quack test. These are the tests that count. So now we have to figure out what's the best thing to do. We're vaccinated. She's asymptomatic. We feel fine. Of course, I don't know my status at this point. So we decide, well, let's go get a rapid test just to double confirm it. So we drive an hour out of our way because we're in the middle of nowhere. We get a rapid test, and that comes back negative. But then I do a little bit of research on the fly, and it turns out that these antigen rapid tests, especially if you have a low viral load, which you will have if you are vaccinated,
right,
are less than 40% accurate. So it was a waste of our time to even
waste of time. Yeah.
However, what it did create, and this is what I would like to share with our public, it did create an interesting situation with the people that we were staying with. These people, who were all vaccinated adults, except for one family who we found out was not vaccinated, but that I'm not even going to include that in this story because that's their choice, okay? We're just looking out for our people who are vaccinated and doing responsible things. All the people we were staying with, like, well, you got a negative test, so you're fine. Don't worry about it. Stick around. And I was like, yeah, but that test is sort of moot. She got a CVS test, but those CVS tests are pooled tests. I was like, yeah, but all tests are pooled tests. If you get a positive pool, they go back and individually test each rate. If you get a PCR test and it says you're positive, the percentage of it being a false positive are incredibly low.
Right.
But people, this is where I'm getting at. People want to hear what they want to hear. These are people who are now, even though only slightly at risk, still at risk, but are thinking, well, you got a negative test.
Right.
No, that's not the truth. So Jen and I had a conversation, and the truth of the matter is we knew right away what we had to do was sacrifice our vacation because our nephews were there, and it was going to rain most of the week, and we were going to be inside. And what it comes down to is really small chance that we would probably give them anything, okay? Especially the vaccinated adults there. And the kids, generally speaking, but it's low risk scenario. Versus, what if something happened?
Right.
What if? You would never feel good about that. There's no way you can't quantify that. And so that's worth losing money and a vacation in our estimation.
Yeah. I don't think there even was a choice. I mean, if you did what you had to do, I mean, of course. Like it's just, it sucks. It sucks so hard, but
hard.
I think you did exactly what you had to do. Like, what else? I mean,
I instantly got a PCR test when we got home. I came back negative. So my vaccine worked in that I did not contract a breakthrough case. Jen's vaccine worked in that she didn't get sick at all.
Yeah.
And this brings me to something that I guess is on its face very obvious, but I'm interested to speak to you because your brother has a little bit more insight.
Yeah.
The percentage of people getting breakthrough cases is really low when you look at the percentages to vaccinated people.
Certainly, yes.
However, had Jen not just out of an abundance of caution gotten a test, would never even have known she had it. We would have just been involved with all these people, and we would never have had to give it a second thought because we had no symptoms. So the question is, how many asymptomatic Delta carriers are actually out there who are vaccinated? And I would imagine it's actually a pretty good number.
I mean, obviously, if they're asymptomatic, we're really not going to know. But that said, how many people, unvaccinated people, are getting it and not getting tested too? So the tested population is already self-selecting to get tested. So it's hard. I mean, you can really only work with the data that you have. And also self-selecting people who are vaccinated are more responsible. So if they do get sick, they're probably more likely than the average population to go get tested too. So I don't know what the numbers end up being in terms of, what are the actual percentages, but whether or not there's a difference of 5 or 10%, obviously the number of people getting Delta, I think I was reading somewhere that somewhere between 97 to 99% of them are the unvaccinated. So even if there is some shift for people not getting tested, like, okay, so it's 92. What the hell's the difference? Obviously,
well, let me loop it back into kind of our universe here. So let's compare, this podcast is in the television vein from the onset almost. TV, SAG, and the film industry have been going about things a lot differently than the stage union, which I guess is different because the audience for stage is live. So it's not apples to apples in any way any stretch of the imagination. But you've noticed that there's been, at this point, almost no real dip in production of film and TV. Yep. Versus we're just starting to get back into productions here at the stage, and how will that be affected? Like I was reading grosses they don't really release them, but some insiders have said grosses for Hamilton, pre-sale for Hamilton, which is the biggest show in the universe. Yeah. Are not sold out.
Not good.
The pre-sale has not been great. Well, you have a great insight to this.
No, I do, and I was actually at a meeting with my producers yesterday talking about exactly this, and it's scary. Everyone on Broadway was certainly hoping that the West End would be up and running for 3 or 4 months before Broadway started, so they could be the guinea pig and see what happens. And that's not what happened. And so everyone on Broadway is... But as we talked about, right now, because of the amount of uncertainty in the world, both like, is the show going to be running? Am I going to be able to go? Are there going to be other restrictions? What gets sold now, I think, is going to be much more day of, week of. Mm-hmm. And certainly I'm looking at the opportunity because, like, all right, hey, I might be able to go see shows pretty cheap right now. Mm-hmm. So, day of, like, I'm feeling like, hey, let me get into the city and go see Dear Evan Hansen or something. I might just do it. Right. So, like everything else, who knows?
Yeah, we hope for the best. For our wives and our people who are our friends and colleagues, there are a lot of auditions now. There's a lot of uncertainty in the union for those who are interested in the fact they just opened our union to. Yep. I'll say everyone. There are some qualifications, but
pretty much everyone.
What has often been a closed union in perpetuity has, in time memoriam, has now opened to just about everybody, but with no guarantee for more jobs. So it's basically just. By 700, it's unknown. It's a lot.
I'll tell you exactly what it is.
They need money. They
need money. The union, in order to pay for your health insurance, needs to take the money, the entrance fees for a whole bunch of people who will never work to pay for your health insurance. Like, that's exactly what's happening right now.
Well, except this. Sorry, this is a podcast of a different type, but I'm sure it's interesting to somebody. The difference is this, Keith, they have not changed the requirements for healthcare. So it's not you join our union, you get healthcare.
Oh, good Lord,
You have to join our union and work a certain amount of weeks, of which now it will be harder to do. It was already next to impossible for 90% of the membership, but now it will be all but those people who have a Broadway contract because there ain't going to be enough regional work to go around.
No, well, possibly. Although I don't necessarily think, and again, is this interesting to anybody but us?
Yeah,
I don't necessarily think this factors, because you talk about auditions, right? So one of the benefits of being a union member in Equity is to be able to go to Equity auditions, right? So, however, they were already full anyway. So if a show can audition 400 people in the time allotted, they're going to audition those 400 people. It's not like they're now that the union is bigger going to audition 800 people. And so I don't think it's actually going to make that measurable of a difference. I mean, you might be able to have more people trying to sign up, but that's all predicated on open calls.
Well, but regardless of the pool of auditions, I'm talking that they haven't, there's no precedent set for there being more equity contracts regionally, right?
No,
so there's still the same limited amount of job openings, but just
no, exactly, and
quadruple the applicants.
No, and my argument is it doesn't change anything. It means nothing because, all right, so you might have more people trying to sign up for the open call, but there's still going to be the same amount of jobs, same amount of slots at the open call. The open calls themselves are basically a joke anyway because all shows are cast through agents and through appointments. So I don't think it makes any difference other than the union gets some more money.
Yeah, well, yeah. We could go on this forever. I think the real, as pertains to a lot of the things we've talked about on this podcast actually recently about inclusivity and about how the media is slow but slowly trying to catch up to certain tropes, to overcome certain tropes about the way we cast minority communities, about the way we portray them. And what's interesting is that this move to open the Actors Equity Union was done in the name of inclusivity, to open the doors to underserved populations. And I think that has left a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths because it rings
kind of disingenuous
hollow.
to say that. Yeah. No, and for sure. And, and for my own experience, and I promise we're going to move on from this topic. For my own experience, I've been eligible to join for a decade and never have because, as only a part-time actor, I don't want to spend $2,000 and then fees forever for something I'm not going to use very often. But it's like, it's entirely, it is a business. They're trying to stay alive. And they serve an important purpose, and right now it's just about survival. And I think, and on the inclusivity side, I'm on board. Like I think it should be open. Like
I agree.
I think that's a good thing. I don't have any problem with it. I just the stated reason and the practical reason may not be the same thing, but
and I also think that
ever?
us as viewers, when it comes to TV and film and media, us as viewers hold a little bit of the cachet, but I think that it falls to producers. Obviously, in order to introduce more the stories of minority communities into our popular culture, it falls on I don't think there's a lack of diverse creators writing their stories. I don't think it's that. I think it's a lack of those stories getting greenlit and being served to us. So we need to watch more of that. Like we need to, as news people, as consumers of media, to open our eyes, and especially as those of us who are in the privileged position of being cisgendered white men, consume more media from diverse outlets and listen to stories that aren't our own. Anyway, sorry, I'll get off my soapbox here. I just have had a lot of feels this week. Also, we, quick shout out. Some good friends lost a parent this week who was close to our family, who it was very kind of a shock. Plus, my brother lost his dog last night. There's a lot of going around. So just sending love and positive vibes out. I'm just hype right now, so I apologize.
Okay, well, I'm certainly send best wishes to all of the people in that world.
But we have important work to get to. This is the season finale.
It is the season finale, and to move forward into far more important topics, perhaps four-legged topics, let's do a little segment called...
We have tried for years to make this podcast a success.
We failed.
It's time to give the world what it wants.
Meow, meow.
Hot cat content.
Meow, meow.
Hot cat content.
Meow, meow.
Hot cat content.
You said
dignity,
I have to do it.
Always dignity. That's true. I did. So what's going on with your cat? You sent me an amazing picture this week.
They're just these two cats. So they're the BBs, we call them, the bonded brothers. These cats are obsessed with one another. But what's kind of funny is that, and this is just the story I'll share. So my challenged cat Dee Dee, who was never really socialized with a litter because his mom died at and he was just kind of like just floundering until someone picked him up. We started bottle feeding him. He's got instincts to start certain nurturing behaviors, but doesn't really know how to rein them in. Case in point, he loves to bathe his brother. He loves to bathe the little kitten.
Sure.
But does not know the proper amount of saliva to use. So when he's done, the kitten comes in and is literally soaking wet. Like he has been dipped in a bath, like dripping wet. And I'm like, Dee Dee, man, you overdid it. He's soaking wet. This is not what he's looking for. But little cat now, like, lifts his legs and, like, moves around like someone is... He just is the most spoiled-ass cat because he's got this, like, indentured servant in my middle cat who's taking care of him. So it's been awesome, and I'm so psyched that it worked out.
I'm shocked and baffled, but thrilled.
Yeah, me too, man.
But thrilled
Not
to hear it.
what I had in mind, but better.
No.
Better. Yeah.
No, because and much like our Cuomo takes from about a year ago, my take that this was a terrible idea did not age well.
Yeah, we'll never be hosting Jeopardy, you and I.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Well, so yeah, I retract some of the nice things we said about Cuomo about a year ago. So somebody's listening to this today, like, whoa, those guys, TikTok.
Well, it is a time capsule of our mental state at the time. And at that point, in the hysteria that was the early days of COVID,
that's right.
All I wanted was somebody to tell me it was going to be okay. I guess I should have asked more questions about how he was making it okay.
Do all of that, but also don't be a creep.
Yeah. We should have qualified.
We forgot to, and I feel like that qualification should just be added to everything now.
Yes.
Just like, hand me that ice cream cone and don't be a creep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Although, you know what? Here's the good news. All of our wear a mask PSAs, they hold up.
They sure do. Yeah. And get vaccinated.
Yeah.
I don't know if like last week my get vaccinated was a PSA or more of like a screaming into the wilderness, but same difference. Yeah. So I'm going to give a quick update on Charlie,
yes.
and then we're going to move forward. So Charlie has a new thing that we have to do every night.
Okay.
For reasons beyond my understanding, he's now like scared of the upstairs. Like it's haunted or something, so that when it's time to go to bed, I have to pick him up and carry him up the stairs and show him the bed and show him there are no ghosts and monsters upstairs. And then he'll go back down and because he likes to run around at midnight, that's his good playtime, and then come to bed later. But if I don't do that, he won't come up. It's really weird.
That is weird. Well, Charlie, it's going to be okay. Don't worry about it.
It's good. I love that picture. He looks so bedraggled. That cat gets brushed at least once or twice a day and still looks like he's been taken out of the same blender.
Like father, like son, Keith. Like father, like son.
I don't get brushed twice a day. Police. I don't think I've brushed since the beginning of COVID. All right, let us move forward and hear what you have to say Phoenix. Hear what Phoenix has to say in a segment we call
Filings and Subpoenas. Filings and Subpoenas. Filings and Subpoenas. Filings and Subpoenas.
So, if somebody
Filings
other than
and some penis, it sounds like. It still sounds like that to me.
If somebody else other than Phoenix would like to file their subpoenas, how would they do that, Mike?
Send us an email. I need to talk to somebody. At out of practice podcast at gmail.com.
Mm-hmm.
Our social medias are on the screen. Out of practice podcast. That's at out of practice podcast on the Instagram or the Facebook. Shout out into the void like we do every week, going on too many years.
That was like the roughest cold read of our social media handles we've been saying for 120 episodes.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
You were reading it like Trump phonetically. At Out of Practice Podcast. It was ridiculous. All right. So, Phoenix on the YouTube, moderator Phoenix, talking about last episode, this Puds for You.
Said, you promised me we weren't going to have to say it this week.
That's right. I forgot Pud. So we were asking what side the defense and prosecution typically sit in the courtroom. And he weighed in. As to the question of where the defense sits, it is very common in real life and almost universal in TV for the defense to sit on stage left. And that has to do with the typical layout of a courtroom. The prosecution plaintiff has the right to sit closest to the jury box. Since that is generally on the right side of the courtroom, the defense usually sits on the left. As jurors, which side was seated closest to you? I think we talked about that. The prosecution was closest to me when I was on the jury. Was that true for you as well, Mike? I think so.
No, you know what? I realized in retrospect, it was a civil case, and we were actually seated at the back of the courtroom where you typically see the gallery.
Really?
So, yes, there was no gallery. It was just us and the thing. And we were actually
you weren't able to watch the plaintiff and the defendant?
We could not see their faces. In fact, what was interesting is that the litigators actually came around and spoke to us, like walked towards us and spoke to us like upstage, and then would turn back. But it was cool because we got like a front-on view of the of each of the witnesses when they were called. And since both the plaintiff and the defendant testified, we actually got to have some face-to-face. Yeah, it was a little weird.
That is weird. I've never seen that on the practice.
Nope.
Anyway, so Phoenix also said, in this episode, Mike guesses that Lindsay will become Dexter, but it's Keith who suddenly turns into a blood spatter analyst. Yeah, I don't know. If one of us were going to be Dexter, which one do you think it would be?
That's tough. I think, I don't know. We're both just so like generally cranky that I don't know that we'd be as discerning as Dexter.
It'd be like an undiscerning Dexter, basically just a serial killer.
Is a
like
serial
a regular
killer, yeah, I know.
Run-of-the-mill.
Are they rebooting Dexter, by the way?
They are. Yeah. Or they're continuing it.
Did I mention that I started watching the new David E. Kelly show on Hulu, which is called 9 Perfect Strangers?
No. How many shows does he have running concurrently right now?
That's a lot right now. Although this one, we've watched the first 3 episodes. An incredible cast. But I don't know if anybody's out there has watched The White Lotus. But this is trying to be sort of The White Lotus, and it is not as successful. So that's my current hot take, 3 episodes in.
Ooh, hot take. Coming after our series creator. All right. So be it. Well, it's time. Don't you think it's time? Because we've been jabbering already for 25 minutes, which is unacceptable. Because it's a beautiful, not a beautiful Sunday. It's Sunday and it's a hurricane. So it is time to hop back into the time machine. And interestingly, it's the same date as last week because these 2 episodes were broadcast back to back on May 19th, the year 2002. And so I'm going to ask this eternal question, but tell us a different story from
This Day in the Basement.
So I think last week I mentioned I had moved back home, and I mentioned it was the 1-year anniversary of my dad passing away. But this, I'll do a kind of a time machine in a time machine. This is May 19th. Oh, I guess he was still alive, which is actually kind of, I'm going to avoid death entirely right now. I think probably is the better call. One thing that was cool about being back in the basement with my mom at the time was that my grandpa was still here, and my grandpa would pass away in 2008. So for at least the next 2 years, I got a really good period of time to spend some time with my grandpa who was living with my mom, and came to realize that he was an incredible musician. He had learned to play the violin very well when he was in his youth, but then he got polio and ended up working for Boeing during the war and kind of gave up the violin, which is kind of really sad, but it did give me some insight into where at least some of my musical talent came because...
You didn't know that he was a musician?
No, I did not. They never talked about it. And my mom sort of fiddled with the accordion, but I never to a degree where I thought that was... So it was always weird to me because though my mom can sing...
The accordion. Now, I have some questions.
She was pretty
Rita,
good, I gotta tell you.
Your mom's name is Rita, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Rita, why the accordion? How does one begin thinking of every instrument in the world and like, it's accordion. That's what I'm going to go for.
I think growing up, my grandfather listened to a lot of polka, as Italians, and like the accordion is in a lot of like Italian type music and folk music, and I think she just picked it up. She was a little clunky at the left hand and stuff because she cannot play the piano, and I don't think she reads music, so I think she was self-taught, is my understanding. Interestingly, my mom had this cool accordion, and not for nothing, I remember a few years ago, I was like, look, I don't want anything, but I would like your accordion, like when the time comes or whatever. Assuming she had kept it, and she's like, nah, I gave it to Purple Heart. And I was like, what? What? She just gave it away. She's like, why would anybody want that? I was like, I'm a musician. Why would I want my family accordion? Weird. So there's probably a story for therapy in there somewhere.
It's going to come in handy for our production of Plaid. See, because your mom can play the accordion in our production of Plaid.
But Keith, where I'm going with this story, with this day in the basement, my tangents this week. Please try to keep me on task. I often am not criticized. People tease me because I have oh my God, my vocabulary today. What is it when you don't an unconscious, subconscious tick? Some would say when I'm listening to music or I'm watching a play or I'm doing that, I tend to air conduct quite liberally and freely, and people tell me to stop often because it's distracting. Totally get it. My grandfather did it as well. He took to watching Lawrence Welk, and I would catch him giving you these and some conducting and some doody-doos, and I fucking thought it was so awesome that he would do that. And so it's kind of another thing I took from my grandfather. So a couple years hanging out with Grandpa started around this time, and I moved back to Pennsylvania, so it wasn't all just despair. Keith, what were you doing?
Oh boy, yeah. I don't conduct very often. Sometimes I will conduct my own music when I'm listening to like a demo or something like that. But the first time I had my show performed live, I sat in the back of the house and I breathed as if I were singing the entire score. So, which I didn't realize I was doing, but another like musician behind me was like, "Did you realize you like sang the entire score just by breathing?" Anyway, so what I was doing, and we talked about last week that the 19th, that exact day, was my college graduation. And so what happened the next day, my birthday, essentially.
Happy old birthday.
In 2002, we packed up all my shit and left Rochester. And that would be the last time I was in Rochester until I went to visit about 3 or 4 years ago. So that I hadn't been back for all of that time. So the way we did this, my father had an old 85 Ford Bronco, which was, we'll get to that part. That's part 2. But he was driving an old 85 Ford Bronco, which is already like super old by that point. But it was giant, and I had all of my earthly possessions. So we loaded up the Bronco and drove it from Rochester, New York, back up to Underhill, Vermont, which is about a 10, 11-hour drive. It's this huge thing. So we drove in the car, and my father took the Bronco, which was loaded up within like medically full of all of my things. And so it was like 10 trillion pounds of stuff up. You can't see out the windows, blah, 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 blah. So he's getting back, about crossing the Vermont border. And if you know Vermont, it's very hilly. It's mountain. Like, we basically live on the side of a mountain. You're going up and down and hills and this, that, the other thing. And he discovers that, hey, he's losing his brakes. And by the time he gets to like the 3 towns over, he has no brakes whatsoever in this
handbrake. Maybe
he had the handbrake, but he ended up having to slow the truck down by using the compression of the engine, because it was a manual transmission, and so he would be slowing it down that way. And he eventually got pulled over because like shit was, or I think he had to pull over and figure out what to do, and a cop came and tried to help him, and of course it's a Vermont cop. It was like, oh, you don't got no brakes, no, huh? All right, that's no good. Don't worry about it. No, I'll drive in front of you, and we'll try to get there together. I'll show you how. And so it was like he didn't have an accent like that, but
He does now. God damn it.
He does now. So my father drove this overloaded 85 Ford Bronco through the mountains of Vermont with no brakes for the last like hour of the ride, which, that's a crazy Varney kind of shit that happens every once in a while. Mom, if you're listening, I'm sure you were thrilled when you found out that happened.
What'd you do to the goddamn brakes?
Well, no, the brakes just died because it was like an old beat up truck. It's just why he just decided to might as well just keep driving.
So since you came home, Keith, they made you help fix the house?
They sure did. So the next couple of days we spent re-roofing the house. So that's me and my dad and my brothers up there tearing off shingles, putting shingles back. And so I can literally prove I have at least at one point in my life roofed, which was it was exciting. It was hard work. It was a little scary because it's especially the main house, like it's high up there.
Right.
So but we did it. Nobody died, and the roof still exists to this day. It's probably time to replace it again. But
what do they say, for 20, 30 years?
Yeah, 20. Yeah, like 25 or so. Although ours has a 50-year warranty. We just put ours on. Pretty fancy. So so that is what was going on this day in the basement. You're just getting more than you bargained for in every segment.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about. There isn't, but we're making it seem like there is.
We are filling time. We need a radio show. Because I feel like if you just said, like, I need you to fill 2:00 in the afternoon to 6:00 and you have no subject and you have no things, we could actually just do that.
Oh, wait till I pitch you the show I got cooking around. It's called KM Weekly. Wait till you want to hear about Talking Into the Void. That one's coming soon, folks.
Why?
Because clearly we spend a lot of time talking about not the practice on this podcast. We might as well just put it somewhere else.
That's true. Look, we're trying to build our YouTube empire of KME entertainment. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking we posted a new video today. It's like, it's too short. Like, because YouTube works on hours watched. We need to just...
Look, it's going to be... We do it once a week. We take the, like, top... find some general randomizer. We put in the headlines of the week. We randomize 5 headlines, and we just have to give our white guy opinions on them.
Great. Just what the internet needs is more opinions, specifically from straight white dudes. Oh, what a
Keith,
what a
we
great
can't
idea.
change that about ourselves. So we have no one else to
work
talk
with what
to.
we got. Yeah, well, fair enough. All right.
Speaking of the world's news,
let's talk about it.
It's time for the Out of Practice Podcast's This Day in the World. The greatest hits, the biggest movies, headlines from Vermont, essential sports updates, and for some inexplicable reason, the weather from 20 years ago. Now back to Keith and Mike.
Well, this was going to be a little anticlimactic because this is the headlines from 1 hour after last episode. But we are still listening to Foolish, Ashanti. If you missed the 7:00 showing of Star Wars Attack of the Clones, maybe you can get into the 9 that same night. The subheading cover of the Burlington Free Press talked about heroin cuts another addict's life short. Same problem, different drug in Vermont. This is such a jazzy version of this. Oh, and it was released the day after my birthday. Wow. How about that? Thanks, Devin. All right, now let's move on to the most important segment of the show.
It's time for Sports Ball.
Over the next month, the NHL playoffs concluded with the Stanley Cup final matchup between the Carolina Hurricanes and the Detroit Red Wings. The teams split the first 2, but Game 3 went into 3 overtime periods before Detroit's Igor Larionov scored 5 minutes into the 6th period of hockey. That was it for Carolina, and Detroit hoisted the cup in Game 5.
awesome. Is it time to get to the actual podcast.
What? Oh, what do we do now? Yeah, all right.
I'm a human being. God damn it. My life has value, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
It's time to talk about the damn episode.
You have been waiting for it all season long. We began with a premiere, and we end with a finale. Specifically, the season 6 finale of The Practice, episode 22, The Verdict. Written by series savior at this point, David E. Kelley, who came back to finish out the tale of the season, and directed by veteran director Dennis Smith, who last directed Eat and Run. Guys, spoiler alert, we might get a verdict in the episode, The Verdict. Lindsay is going on trial for murder again. I think it's time for Mike to tell us what's going to happen.
What is that supposed to mean?
What's your problem?
Is this what happens to women when you insert your penis?
What?
What does Mike think's gonna happen?
You know, what if he would have drank the curdled milk? Then what would have happened?
Guys, I thought about it. We have the same season finale as last year, except it's swap Bobby and Lindsay. And so I thought to myself, you know what, Mike? You're so consumed with the sexy. Put the sexy aside and focus on what would make this a good season finale or at least a different season finale. And here's what I came up with, Keith. And I think I might be onto something here. I have no idea what it has to do with Christmas. So I'm not going to worry about that. But here's where I do think they're going to throw us a loop with that title, The Verdict. Here's what I think is going to happen. We're going to get a case finally that we like. Because an episode we like because it's just the case with Lindsay. Cameron Manheim, our girl Eleanor, is leading the charge here. She's prosecuting it. We're going to get all the stuff we love. We're going to get team strategy. We're going to get curveballs thrown. Biggest curveball of all is they're going to put Lindsay on the stand. And her testimony is not going to be comforting. It's going to because, she's a little crazed right now. So I think it might come off a little bit unhinged, and I think it's going to make a lot of people worried. And Keith, here's the big twist. You ready for the big twist, the big cliffhanger, if you will?
Okay.
There is no verdict. The season 6 will end with us not knowing the fate of Lindsay Dole as it hangs in the balance.
Are you going to make us spend an entire summer not knowing what's going to happen to Lindsay Dole 20 years ago?
Luckily for us, it's a 2-week wait. But for the viewing audience at home, yes, because Keith, as you've mentioned, the ratings weren't great. It was on uneasy ground. So they're like, we have to find a way to hook people into next season. We're not letting them off the hook. Lindsay is in trouble, and she's still in trouble by the end of the episode.
Wow. Okay. Well,
and it's sexy as hell.
I was gonna say I was gonna be sad that you set
it's
sexy
so
aside.
Sexy. It's just sexy by its very nature. It doesn't need my zhuzh.
Yeah, that's nothing sexier than Lindsay being tried for murder. All right. Well, I'll tell you what might be sexier: listening to us listen to this episode. And it's time to hop over to your podcasting service of choice.
Oh, Larry King is sexy.
Yeah, Larry King. That finally found the sexy. And listen to The Practice, Season 6, Episode 22. We'll be back here on the YouTubes for the After Show.
And we are back, baby. And
we are indeed.
Lindsay's in prison. I imagine by now she's made it. Bobby's already started his affair with a Black Widow murderer somewhere. Although maybe that's the sexy, Keith. Bobby's going to be into it now because his wife is a convicted murderer, which is what turns his screws.
Yeah, that's true. Lindsay Dole has been convicted of murder. Big doings. You know what? Hold on. You know what we just did? We messed up everyone's favorite segment.
2, 3, 4. Mike has 30 seconds to remember what just happened on the show.
Segment.
Yeah, there's no timer, guys. Lindsay is on trial for murder and she's found guilty. I mean, that's the recap.
Yeah. Yeah. Poor Mike looks a little shell-shocked.
I feel that way. I'll talk more about it in a segment we call Lindsay is on trial. Lindsay is found guilty fast. This is piss-ass crap.
Yes. Wow. Way to call it back. Wow. I'm so excited to hear what Mike feels about all of these things. But first, we have to hand out some hardware for the last time in season 6 in a segment we call...
This.
We call...
I guess we just go right to it. Let's get to it.
Mike is so pissed he's not even going to roll the bumper. I love it.
But we will listen to this particular...
Oh, yes. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, for the last time in season 6. Majestic.
Well, I mean, Walsh won his case. He put a not dangerous, incredible woman and lawyer in prison. But that said, Eleanor tried an incredible case. I thought she did everything that was asked of her. It's incongruent to me how quickly they lost. I want to say it's Eleanor. But she lost. So it's tough because he's the bad guy, but I guess it's Walsh, right? I mean, like, most valuable. Well, so Eleanor, though, was a great case. I mean, you can't say her value clearly is not the value proposition. Whatever Lindsay paid, she didn't get her money's worth.
Didn't pan out, no.
No. So I guess by default, in this case, usually it shouldn't be predicated entirely on winning. I know we get shit from Phoenix about that, but here, I don't see any other way to look at it other than... I mean, no one really wins here, but I guess that's just because I have visceral feelings. So I guess it's D.A. Walsh. I don't know. Tell me what do you think?
No, I think you're right. I mean, I think at the outset of this case, both sides had some things working in their favor and things working against them, right? Because the DA had working against them, the dude's a serial killer cannibal who came to her house, right? So that's a pretty hard thing to argue that that she committed murder. On the other hand, Eleanor was saddled with the fact that she had threatened to kill him publicly in court previously and had to, work out a zinger before they shot him, plus they were acting all guilty. So they were both given difficult hands to play. And, Walsh, he did it. He did a good close. He did a good explanation as to why we as a larger society don't benefit from her blowing away a serial killer. And I think that was his job. And I think he did a good job at it. So congratulations, ADA Walsh, with your most valuable lawyer. Okay. I think this one is going to be fairly anticlimactic. Why did that bumper goes on forever?
Those people were psyched. They were
so pumped. I think it was Walsh's family.
Yeah.
Was
well,
here?
I hope they're queued up.
Oh, yeah. Okay, folks. It's time.
Already famous cause you've been on TV, getting a paycheck, or the first entry on your IMDb. Way to go, but you're the best guest actor. You are the best guest actor. You are the best
Season 6 will be remembered for many things. When I broke my voice on a bumper, when we officially made the official choreography of Best Guest Actor. I think that was
That's
this
true.
season. A lot of things happened this season. Yeah, it's Smichevich. Everybody loves to hate him. He did he was very impassioned in this episode. And what kind of gave it a lot of color is that we've seen through his actions through this season that he's not as dedicated to legal morality as he claims to be, and yet was able to portray that.
To feign it well.
Yeah, and also, there's a moment, you have to watch the episode, there's a moment right after the verdict where he should probably be filled with jubilation as a winner, but you can see him quickly, in the briefest of cutaways, sort of begin to wrestle with what the hell does this all mean? And that's awesome. That was an excellent beat for him. And, sometimes it's fun to play the bad guy. Sometimes it's not. And regardless, you have to play the beats and the desired outcome of your character. And I think he did that well this episode. And I think he's easily also the only choice. So easy winner.
I totally agree. I think it's Smichevich for sure. And he did something I thought was smart, and I thought the episode did it smart. Because both he and the character kind of played it straight.
Yeah.
There wasn't a lot of shenanigans happening. He basically just tried the case straightforward, and as opposed to some of the underhanded tactics that he's done previously, he didn't. This was just a straight, so this isn't a story of our firm and Lindsay getting screwed, right? This is the story of they lost the case. And, so, and I think that Smichevich, brings a credibility to everything he does, even when he has to say piss-ass crap, which he sold that line. Honestly, he gets the oopsie for selling that line with a straight face, more than anything else. So, congratulations. Bill, so glad your family was here to celebrate this moment. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to cut you off, because we have to get to some things. Let's do another anticlimactic one.
You killed your podiatrist or blew the case, but you let a single tear run down your face.
Many tears.
You're the best actor on the show.
All right, it's Kelly Williams, but I'll say that just so that it's not just like a throwaway. It wasn't like she just wept her way through the episode. She had to play all kinds of nooks and crannies of this, and was able to and actually very much like her testimony, when she had to be okay, we saw her have to be okay, and then we saw her sort of the trauma and the stress break through at times, and that you only get that with a skilled actress. If you're just a kind of a mediocre actress, you would have got a lot of hysterics, because truth be told, hysterics are the easiest thing to play. And she was able to show us a lot more than that. And I think it's obvious she's the best, but though not like we said during the episode, everyone was excellent in this. They really got a tour de force performance, with the exception of those who weren't in the episode. Jimmy got at least some opportunity. Michael Badalucco got some opportunity to react. And I just think, because
he was in the courtroom there, and
and Marla, though she's excellent when we see her, she is Lucy. She's the receptionist. She's much more than that, but I can understand if you have to cut some people from the episode. She's not totally necessary. But I will say, and I think we need to keep stressing it, I think that once again Lisa Gay Hamilton is just underserved. By this writing team.
Yep, perpetually underused. Kelly was terrific and was handed a very difficult task. This whole arc isn't, they put some real heavy lifting on her shoulders, and she knocked it out of the park. She really did. So congratulations. Look at that. Bill Smichevich's family is also excited about Kelly Williams' oopsie. That's very, very generous of them. Who we're not excited for, but he was playing in the preseason. I was shocked to see him play.
The Tom Brady Award for being Tom Brady.
Well, Keith, he was playing because he did try out to be Larry King's replacement after the sad passing of Larry King, but unfortunately that didn't go so well. So this week's winner is Tom Brady failing to be the replacement for sucking at Larry King's job, Tom Brady. So Tom Brady sucking at Larry King's job, Tom Brady.
Okay, I was going to say,
that's a lot.
At Larry King's job, Tom Brady. Okay, there it is. Very, very good. All right. Mike, I can tell you are locked and loaded. I just want to give you the ball and let you run with it.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is time to announce how many spare tires this episode gets.
All right, so a benefit Keith gets is that he has time to sort of compose himself, collect himself, and prepare something to say for this portion about the episode. I do not get that luxury. I'm sort of winging it, and I'm going to be probably incoherent here.
Sort of winging it?
Yeah, I'm more than winging it. But here's my feelings, unabashed. I can comprehend losing the case, okay? I mean, clearly we did lose. So I don't think that it's like crap because we lost. I'm upset that we lost, but we were almost backed in a corner because of because of last season and the fact that this is a little bit retrod ground. It makes sense that we're guilty. And it gives us a great end of the season cliffhanger and somewhere to go. Now, feelings. How quickly the verdict came back, seemingly, it definitely was not more than a day. It didn't seem we were in the court, seems with the amount of women that were on that jury, with the amount that it seemed they were affected when we took to them, it just seems incongruent to me that they quickly would have just sent this woman away. No priors, no nothing, no attempts to plead it out, nothing. Just we're going right to guilty of first-degree murder against a cannibal. Whereas Bobby basically hired a man to kill somebody last season and we let him go, which I know the jury's not. So what I'm saying is where my problems list is in the drama is in the show's writing. It is a well-written episode. I thought the performances were great. I thought the tension was great. The cards were set. It seems a lot more, the ambiguity seemed a little forced. Like, it feels like she's just not guilty, but okay, she's guilty. My thing where let's just hold the verdict to next season, I felt like would have been, yes, a cheap cliffhanger, but at least gives us some places to go and to think about. Now that we've written Lindsay guilty of murder, next season, you can't have a fun television show where where Lindsay's just rotting away in federal penitentiary. Okay, so that's not going to happen. Nobody's under the impression that that's what's going to happen. I'm not. So where does that leave us to go? We find out one of the jurors was tainted and it's a mistrial. We find out Simitrovic did some bullshit and it's a mistrial. Or do we do a whole appeal arc? Like that So you know what? I'm proving my point wrong. Like, I guess that is interesting. All three of those things are interesting. But what bothers me the most is that here's Lindsay, who's actually gone through some shit. And yeah, I'm glad they're all saying we support you now. But like, clearly this woman has been through so much trauma. She's flipped. Now she's broken. Now this kid has a convicted murderer mother. She's not getting the help she deserves. It just blows the character of Lindsay up. Like, there's not a ton of, I don't see a huge redemptive arc because we still have to have the week-to-week episodic nature of the television show. I just think it sucks for the character of Lindsay. And I don't know. I guess I feel like people watching the show 20 years ago would have felt like this fucking sucks. So I'm left with an actual dilemma. Like, do I not like the episode? No, it was really pretty. It was a pretty great episode. Like, all of the challenges they had, because here's the thing. David did come in because they set the table really well, Keith. Like, they set up the DA Walsh arc, just enough that we are actively rooting for Lindsay, and we're not even rolling our eyes or any of that crap that we have another murder trial, because this guy, it makes sense that he would go after her because he's got some sort of vendetta. And then, like you said, he played it straight. We had a great strategy that I thought we were pretty effective. I would have hammered the trauma thing a little bit. I would have brought some witnesses on to talk about. I think we could have hammered that a little bit more.
Right.
At the end of the day, how do you not like an episode that was well written, incredibly, impeccably performed, and leaves you, especially as a season finale without going to the Bobby McRambo extremes? You just play a straight, well-litigated case with all the things I say I like, that has a great cliffhanger ending. I have to like it, though I feel nasty. But I'm going to say 8.67 spare tires.
Wow. After all that, it's an 8.67.
I needed to talk it out.
Yeah. No, I understand. Yeah. Well, I don't dislike this verdict for a couple of different reasons. Obviously, it was set up to be there was a legitimate argument on either side of this. I think it really does mix up because we've had all of our main characters on trial for all sorts of things, and they've never been convicted before. And what happens when one of us are in jail? Do we go for an appeal? How do we deal with that? I'm intrigued. I like that. I'm sort of the opinion that, like, I would have liked to have seen somebody convicted before. This particular case, I thought they played it straight, and I think it's not unbelievable that she would have been convicted here. So I actually have no problem with any of that. But I think what you were sort of inferring is you don't like the treatment of Lindsay in this situation. And I agree with you, not in the context of this case, but the way we have treated Lindsay as a character the entire series. And so, again, it's not happening in a vacuum, right? So 3 serial killers going after, like, okay, so like the unbelievability of it aside, because we've talked about that ad nauseum, but just beating this character up and traumatizing this character up over and over again. And don't forget Sex, Lies, and Monkeys, where she went through a rape story and went crazy, and it was incredibly badly treated as a character in that situation too. And I mean, because if you think about it, if I were prosecuting the case, one of my first questions would be, where'd you get the gun? Why did you have the gun? What were your, and if you go back, she got it for Sex, Lies, and Monkeys. Like, have you ever used it before? Have you ever shot at a person before? Yeah, it was blanks, but she went in and shot somebody before. Like, there's just a lot there that, why is this one character just like the whipping person for all of these things?
And they're not unaware of it. They're not unaware of it, because twice, even in this episode, Lindsay has her kind of come to Jesus, where she's like, you guys just assumed I was a murderer from the beginning. You didn't even like see if I was okay. It wasn't about that. It was about like, how do we just like operate as a murder case? And then I'm past that. Don't forget, Jimmy was like, well, she seemed like she was crazy on the stand, and that's good for us. He used those words, which is just like, once again, blanket paint the brush on mental illness as a tactic, not the actual somebody, a friend, not only a colleague, but a friend suffering from it. It's just
the writing has always treated Lindsay like a doormat. I mean, we had the case where Bobby's having an emotional affair with the Black Widow, and like, Bobby treats her like crap.
Lindsay, the crazy one at the end of that one.
She's the crazy one. And so I think what you're reacting to is not this case or this verdict. It's the treatment of that character throughout the whole series. And it's like the Bobby is an asshole, but the writing is an asshole to the character of Lindsay, and has been like it just becomes sort of sadistic over time that she just keeps getting beat up like this. So I think that is really what I sort of feel about this. I really liked your point about why was the verdict so fast. I think, the verdicts always come in right away in these things. And I get it for storytelling purposes, that kind of stuff. But when you have a verdict this important for a character like this, you don't need to make the verdict happen next season. All you need is a 90-second montage of us taking a week and being nervous for a week and just sort of staring at the clock and at the calendar, and like it's a 90-second montage that makes it feel much more epic and makes it feel like we're watching our characters go through the stakes of that time.
It also gives room for if some funny business was to happen in that area. When you have it come back so fast, that means this was open and shut, and you can't appeal. You can't appeal because there was some crazy thing on the jury. Like, if there's an appeal, it's going to have to be a straight one and not some Deus Machina.
Right, and even if you don't use it, because they haven't written the first episode of the next season, it gives you a little bit more rope to play with when you sit down to write season 7. So, so. I'm going to give a number, and then I'm going to give an interesting piece of trivia. That said, I do think it's a good episode by itself. And, like I've said for a couple of weeks now, if this was the first time Lindsay goes through something like this, I love this. Fascinating. It's great. It's just, blah, blah, blah. I've talked about it ad nauseum. I'm going to give it a 8.4.
Okay. So, all right.
So here is the interesting piece of trivia for those of you who have not already checked the IMDb. When they recorded this episode, when they shot this episode, they didn't know where they were going to go. So, and also to prevent spoilers, they shot the verdict in either direction. So they shot the scene with her winning, and they shot the scene with her losing. Interesting.
That's always, I gotta say, as far as performances go, that's always a tough scene. Like, the shock on Lindsay and everybody's face really read authentic. So I wonder if you do something creatively as a director and be like, hey, we're going to shoot both scenes, but we're not telling you which one's getting read right now.
Oh my God, that's so smart.
Yeah.
That would be great. Good question. All right. Yeah. Well,
I will say this.
Yeah.
Ne'er in the history of the Out of Practice podcast have I been so tempted to watch ahead. It's because we have probably 2 weeks before I'm going to get to see the next episode. So I really want Lindsay to be okay. And I don't see, she's going to spend at least a few days in prison.
We had to suffer an entire summer. You can get through 2 weeks, sir.
Yeah, I guess I'm going to have to, aren't I?
Yes, you certainly
are.
So
is that an Christmas ornament?
It is not. It's a little Easter egg just for us. That is Neville Longbottom's Remember All from Harry Potter, because when we started to shoot this, I had forgotten to build this 2-shot. So it's for myself to remember to do the 2-shot next week. Next week, we have the Season 6 OOPSY Season Recap Spectacular.
Also known as Promises Made, Promises Broken.
Not kept.
Keith and I did promise that we would be in the same location for the season OOPSY Spectacular, but COVID was making us stressed out. Yeah, and now we're just stressed out with other stuff.
Yeah, someday we're going to do it, but it's going to be spectacular anyway.
Keith, you must have been toiling away hours and hours preparing it.
Here's the thing. I work from home now.
Yeah.
So as opposed to being tied to a desk for 8 hours a day, if I run out of work for my job, I can just go do something else. Yeah. Because when I was tied to the desk, I had to be there till 5. I had all the time in the world to do all the graphics and all the oopsies and all this, that thing, all of these things.
I thought we were getting close and intimate.
I really don't want to do that. Mm-hmm. I'm going to back further away. No.
This is higher def than anyone wanted.
That isn't everything. So So now, to do all these graphics, I have to sit down and take time away from my yard or my cat or my Xbox. It's, I'm going to do it, but I'm definitely going to do it later and, a little lazier.
Folks, if you want to do it later, you can do so by, writing us after hours at outofpracticepodcast@gmail.com. Or you could, troll us like an ex-boyfriend on Facebook at Out of Practice Podcast. Or you can check out our awesome pics on Instagram at Out of Practice. Or if you're even cooler than that, you can go ahead and join the jury. All the cool kids are doing it. And by cool kids, I mean a few people way early on and then no one after that. And you can do so by leaving us a rating on Apple Podcasts or any of your podcasting services of choice. Shoot us an email afterwards to let us know you did so we can put you on this awesome graphic, which Keith probably wouldn't update anyway. People that don't need any updating are our good friends Jorge Navoa, Cloudlover69, Leanne Wrights, Jennifer Massanova, and Carrie Kuhn. Keith, that means we're tossing it back to you.
Yes, if you are also confused about us flipping our responsibilities here at the end of the podcast and think, how is Keith going to fill that last 15 seconds before he makes a lame, tepid laser sounds jokes? Well, set your lasers to That's How I Do It.
Laser sounds?
Laser sounds.